The Filth of Survival, a journey into medieval peasant hygiene. In the dim pre-dawn of a single-room hovel in 1347, somewhere in the mist-shrouded fields of northern France, you awaken to the sound of your mother's ragged cough cutting through the stillness. The straw beneath you crackles as you shift, its damp, mouldy scent mingling with the sour stench of unwashed bodies and the decaying thatch overhead. The air is thick, heavy with the organic reek of a world untouched by cleanliness. Your scalp itches fiercely, your skin crawls with the familiar sting of bites and welts, and your stomach gnaws with a hunger that is as constant as the parasites that call your body home. Outside, a rooster's cry pierces the darkness, though dawn feels an eternity away. Your father stirs, his breath a rancid cloud, his teeth blackened, stumps in swollen, bleeding gums. Your sister whimpers in her sleep, her face flushed with fever, her hair a tangled mass of sweat and filth. This is no nightmare, it is your reality, a life where survival demands endurance in a world where cleanliness is not just a luxury, but an impossibility. Before we unravel the forgotten struggles of these medieval lives, steeped in grit and resilience, consider subscribing to join our community of curious minds. Share in the comments where you're listening from, and let us connect across time, united by our fascination with the past's hidden truths. The elusive gift of water, the essence of life, was a treasure rarer than gold in medieval Europe. For a peasant family like Guillaume de Montfort, dwelling in the village of Beaumont-sur-Oise, some 30 miles north of Paris in 1352, access to clean water was a distant dream. Their lifeline was the Oise River, a murky artery that doubled as the village's sewer, laundry, and livestock trough. Guillaume, known to us through faded tax records, trudged daily to this river, his wooden buckets returning heavy with water so thick with sediment it seemed more earth than liquid. This was no mere discoloration, it was a broth of human waste, animal droppings, and unseen microbes that would sicken a modern soul within hours. Yet this was the water Guillaume's wife, Marguerite, used to cook pottage, to wash their 4 children's fevered brows, and, on rare occasions, to scrub their own weary bodies. Medieval peasants were not ignorant of water's dangers. They knew stagnant pools bred sickness, so they sought running streams, unaware that their village's collective use turned these streams into rivers of contagion. Boiling water was a known safeguard, but fuel wood or peat was a precious commodity, hoarded for cooking or warmth rather than wasted on purifying water. Instead, they turned to ale, a weak brew safer than water because fermentation killed many pathogens. In 14th century England, a family might consume 3 to 5 gallons of ale daily, not out of indulgence but necessity. Even children sipped it with their meagre breakfast of coarse bread. Ale sustained life, but it could not cleanse the body, and for peasants, washing was a perilous gamble with scarce resources. The Sisyphean task of cleanliness. Soap existed in the medieval world, but for peasants, it was a luxury as unattainable as a noble's silks. Crafting soap demanded animal fat, wood ash, and hours of labor resources most families could ill afford. Twice a year, if fortune allowed, a family might render a slaughtered animal's fat into a crude soap, but more often, they scoured their skin with sand, leaving it raw and bleeding, inviting infection through broken flesh. Agnes, a soap maker from Canterbury in 1376, appears in court records, her hands skilled in crafting soap for merchants, yet too poor to use it herself. Described as unwashed and verminous, her hair a matted mass. Agnes embodied the cruel irony of her trade. She created cleanliness for others while living in filth. For most peasants, washing was a rare ritual, reserved for sacred occasions like Easter or Christmas. Consider Marie d'Aucassi, a peasant woman near Reims in 1289, preparing for her annual bath. Weeks of hoarded fuel heated a tub of water that turned brown the moment she entered. With no soap, she scrubbed with sand and a rough cloth, emerging with skin torn and bleeding. Her only clothes, soaked with the same grime, were her only option to wear again. Days later, fever gripped her as infections took hold in her abrasions. Her family, lacking medicine or knowledge of germs, could only pray for her recovery. Such was the paradox of medieval hygiene. Attempts at cleanliness often invited greater harm. A body besieged it. The medieval peasant's body was a battleground, host to a relentless army of parasites. Lice were universal, infesting every scalp from serf to sovereign. Fleas thrived in clothing, scabies mites burrowed beneath skin, and intestinal worms, some growing feet long, writhed within. A medical text from 1295 by Brother Albertus, a monk physician, recounts a peasant woman whose belly, swollen with worms, mimicked pregnancy. When purged, the writhing mass filled a bucket, a sight so common it scarcely warranted surprise. Scabies, with its unrelenting itch, drove victims like Marguerite de Blas, recorded in Normandy's charity rolls of 1334, to scratch herself raw, her clothes stiff with blood and pus. Monks sheltered her but kept her apart, fearing her corruption would spread. Hair was a particular torment. Rarely cut due to religious beliefs or scarce tools, it became a matted nest for lice. Isabella Farnham, noted in Yorkshire records of 1356, had hair so infested that vermin crawled visibly during Mass, a distraction to worshippers but not unusual enough to cause scandal. Teeth fared no better. Coarse bread ground enamel to stumps by a peasant's 30s. Roger the Miller, documented in Essex in 1312, had no teeth left by age 40, his gums so infected he subsisted on pottage and ale. Dental pain was as inevitable as aging, and breath so foul that a merchant, Francesco di Marco, writing from London in 1378, complained it could knock a man senseless. Women's hidden burdens. Women faced unique horrors. Menstruation, shrouded in taboo, was managed with rags that were rarely washed and often shared among household women, spreading infections. Eleanor Kemp, recorded in a Norfolk Confession of 1301, described her monthly agony. "The rags I use breed corruption and such pain that I cannot sit or stand." She died in childbirth 2 years later, likely from an infection rooted in those rags. Childbirth itself was a gamble with death, as midwives like Alice Miller of Canterbury, known in 1289 for her perpetually dirty hands, delivered babies in conditions ripe for infection. Matilda Shepherd, another of Alice's patients, lost 4 infants before succumbing to childbed fever after her 5th, a tragedy born of unavoidable filth. Homes of contamination. The peasant home was a crucible of contamination. A single room of mud and straw walls and a leaking thatch roof housed entire families, often alongside pigs and chickens. The dirt floor absorbed every spill, urine, feces, food scraps, while straw mattresses, changed perhaps twice a year, teemed with insects and mould. Brother Marcus of Fountains Abbey, writing in 1291, described a peasant's tunic so foul it distressed the monastery's horses. Food preparation occurred in this same space, on tables used for everything from changing infants to plucking chickens. A Parisian merchant in 1342 noted a peasant woman cooking on a table still soiled from a baby's waist, seeing no fault in her actions. The rhythm of the seasons. Seasons shaped hygiene's challenges. Spring's mud tracked filth into homes. Summer's heat bred flies and spoiled food. Autumn's harvest left no time for washing, and winter's cold made water scarce and dangerous. During the Great Famine of 1316, a Yorkshire priest described 30 souls crammed into a single room, unwashed for months, their stench so overpowering he fled mid-mass. Work compounded the problem. Farming meant handling manure, laden soil. Dairy work exposed women to spoiled milk, and tools, wooden or metal, carried contamination from task to task. Society's role in spreading filth. Social life amplified the spread of disease. Markets and fairs brought crowds together, sharing contaminated food and water. Religious gatherings, with shared communion cups and relic kissing, were hotbeds of infection. War was catastrophic, with armies living in squalor that made villages seem pristine. Froissart, chronicling the 100 Years' War, noted that English camps lost more men to disease than battle. Sieges trapped populations in filth, with unburied bodies turning cities into tombs. Resilience amid ruin. Yet, amid this unimaginable filth, peasants displayed astonishing resilience. Their immune systems, forged in constant battle with pathogens, adapted to local diseases, allowing some communities to weather epidemics that devastated cities. They developed crude but effective survival strategies, isolating the sick, choosing safer water sources by season, and preserving food to minimize spoilage. Women, in particular, honed sophisticated knowledge, stretching meager resources to maintain what cleanliness they could. Midwives, despite their limitations, learned techniques that sometimes defied the odds. A legacy of endurance. For Guillaume, Marie, Agnes, and Isabella, the notion of clean water from a tap or daily soap was as fantastical as a dragon's flight. They were not careless or ignorant but survivors, crafting lives from the raw materials of a brutal world. Their homes, reeking of decay, were stages for love, laughter, and loss. Their bodies, scarred and itching, carried them through fields and harvests. Their legacy is not just survival but the foundation of our world, built on their unyielding endurance. As you sit in your clean home, the memory of a hot shower still fresh, consider these ancestors. They drank water that would sicken you, wore clothes that would horrify you, and lived in homes you deem uninhabitable. Yet they persisted, their courage a testament to the human spirit. In the pre-dawn darkness, as the rooster crows and the cycle of survival begins anew, their story whispers across centuries, a tale of grit, sacrifice, and the quiet triumph of those who made our cleanliness possible.